There's a moment you've probably had 100 times. You're at a gathering, people everywhere, laughter, conversation, the hum of human connection happening all around you. And somehow, you find yourself drifting past the kitchen, past the small talk, until you're in the corner of the room where the dog is lying quietly on the floor, or the cat is watching everything from the windowsill. And something in you settles, not because you're shy, not because you don't know how to talk to people, but because something about that animal felt more real than everything else in the room. You can have a full conversation with a person and leave feeling emptier than before, and then come home, sit next to your dog, say nothing, and feel completely understood. People don't always get that. They smile politely when you talk about your animal the way others talk about their closest friend. They assume you're lonely or eccentric, or that you just haven't found the right people yet. But that's not it, is it? Most people assume that feeling closer to animals than to humans means something is missing. That it's a gap, a retreat, a consolation prize for someone who couldn't quite figure out people. But that's not the full truth. Sometimes it's the opposite. Research published in the journal Human-Animal Interactions found that people who form the strongest bonds with animals often have deeply developed capacities for attachment. The same neural and emotional processes that govern our closest human bonds. The researchers noted that people frequently perceived their relationship with their pets as fulfilling the same core attachment needs as their closest human relationships: proximity, safety, and genuine emotional connection. Not less capable of connection, differently calibrated for it. What if the animals didn't choose you by accident? What if something about the way your nervous system works makes you unusually attuned to a kind of presence that most people learn to overlook? Think about what it actually feels like. You walk through the door after a long day. Maybe it was hard. Maybe it wasn't hard exactly, just exhausting in that quiet way that's difficult to explain to anyone. And before you've said a word, something knows. The dog lifts their head. The cat presses into your leg, and your chest, which has been slightly tight for hours without you realizing it, loosens. No performance required. No translating what you feel into words someone else might accept. No wondering if you're saying too much, or not enough, or the wrong thing entirely. Just presence, meeting, presence. There's a particular quality of attention animals give. Total, unhurried, without agenda. You can't fake your way through it. They don't respond to the version of you that's holding everything together. They respond to something underneath that, something more honest. And some people find that unbearably easier than being around other humans. This didn't start nowhere. For most people who feel this pull toward animals, there was a childhood where connection was complicated. Not necessarily dramatic, not always painful in an obvious way. Maybe the emotional rules in your home were unpredictable. Maybe love came with conditions that shifted. Maybe you learned very early that people contained surprises, and not always kind ones. And somewhere in that uncertainty, an animal appeared. A dog that didn't care what kind of day anyone was having. A cat that chose you specifically for reasons that felt inexplicable and therefore trustworthy. A creature that never once made you feel like you were too much, or not enough, or unclear. That animal became a map of what safe felt like, and the nervous system remembers. Not as a thought, as a sensation, as the way your shoulders drop when a certain kind of creature is nearby. This made sense once. It still does. Your body is not imagining this. Research published in Frontiers in Psychology found that human-animal interaction activates the oxytocin system, the same neurochemical network involved in parent-child bonding and deep human attachment. Contact with a familiar animal reduces cortisol, lowers heart rate, and decreases measurable markers of social stress. Your nervous system responds to animals the way it responds to safety. And there's something important in the word familiar here. The effect is strongest with animals you know, animals who know you, which means what you're experiencing isn't a general fondness for creatures. It's a specific, calibrated bond. Your brain recognizes it as attachment, real attachment, the kind the body counts. Neuroscientists studying the human-animal bond have also linked it to Edward O. Wilson's concept of biophilia, the idea that humans carry an evolved affinity toward other living things. That this isn't sentiment, it's ancient, wired, not a quirk, a root. We live in a world that measures connection by its human form. How many friends you have, how often you go out, whether you prefer people to solitude. Animals don't fit neatly into any of that accounting. So the person who lights up around a horse but struggles in a crowded room gets labelled antisocial. The one who cries at the loss of a pet the way others cry at the loss of a person gets told they're overreacting. But grief researchers have found that the loss of a pet can be psychologically equivalent to the loss of a human companion. The pain is not smaller, it's just less publicly permitted. We are living in a culture that validates certain kinds of love and quietly dismisses others. And some people have always known that the heart doesn't care much about those categories. Here is what changes when you understand this. You stop apologizing for it, not all at once, not perfectly, but slowly. The need to explain yourself, to justify why you'd rather spend a Sunday morning with your dog than at brunch, starts to feel a little less urgent. What you have with animals is not a lesser form of connection. It's a different frequency of it. Animals communicate without language, without subtext, without the layered negotiations that human relationships require. And some people whose nervous systems are particularly attuned to non-verbal information, to emotional undercurrents, to what's not being said, find that frequency easier to inhabit. Not broken, calibrated differently. Maybe you've always been someone who reads a room before you speak in it, who notices when something is off before anyone else does, who carries more of the emotional weight of a conversation than you are handed. Animals meet you at that level without requiring you to carry anything at all. That's not weakness, that's not avoidance. That is a nervous system finding the conditions where it can breathe. And perhaps the animals have always known that about you. There's a reason certain creatures seek you out in a crowded room. A reason the dog that ignores everyone else comes to rest beside you. A reason the cat that trusts no one trusts you. They are not wrong about what they sense. You don't need to choose between loving animals and loving people. But you also don't need to pretend the two feel the same. They don't. And you're not broken for knowing that. Not antisocial, not damaged, not someone who gave up. Someone whose capacity for connection found a form that fits. The world will keep telling you that the most meaningful bonds wear a human face. That real intimacy requires human language. That something must be wrong if a creature without words knows you better than most people with them. You don't have to believe that anymore. Maybe the truest thing about you is that you can be known without performing, loved without explaining, present without pretending, not isolated, deeply connected, just differently fluent. There's something an animal offers that nothing else does. Witness without words, presence without pressure. They don't need you to be more or less than you are. And maybe you've spent years wondering why that felt like relief rather than lack. Now you know, not everyone moves through the world the same way. Some people find themselves in crowds. You found yourself in stillness, in fur and breath and the quiet of being truly met. Not a consolation, a homecoming. You were not too much for them. You were always exactly enough. If this reached something in you today, I'd love to know this. What's the moment when you first realised an animal understood you in a way most people hadn't? Not the big moments necessarily, the quiet ones. Drop it in the comments, because your story might be the thing that finally puts words to what someone else has been carrying silently for years. I'll be reading everyone